Welcome to Hope in the Face of Cancer, where we share real stories of courageous people and their cancer journey. Today, more and more young adults are hearing the words, "You have cancer." It's a reality no one expects, especially in their 20s or 30s, when life is supposed to be about new beginnings. One of the hardest parts? Feeling like no one truly understands what you're going through. Today, we welcome Maddy to the show. At just 24 years old, she was diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma. She went through treatment and came out the other side, but like so many survivors, she quickly realized that healing doesn't end when treatment does. Her journey is one of resilience, transformation, and purpose, and we're so grateful to have her with us today. Maddy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Darcy. What a lovely intro. I love that. Thank you so much. I'm
Oh,
excited to
well,
be here with you.
yes. Well, thank you for sharing your story with our audience today.
Mhm.
I know it will resonate with so many, as I mentioned, so many more people are getting diagnosed
Mhm.
young. But before we dive into your diagnosis, I'd like for the audience to know a little bit more about Maddy pre-diagnosis. So tell us a little
Mm.
about what life looked like before your cancer diagnosis.
Yeah, such a good question. So different, kind of, to what it looks like now. I'm 31 now. I was 24 when I was originally diagnosed, and I was living in Austin, Texas. I'm from Los Angeles, which is where I live now, but I was living in Austin. I was, working full time in marketing, going out every weekend,
Yeah.
not very
Living a
healthy.
typical life of a 24-year-old.
Typical
Yeah.
24-year-old life. Yeah. Yeah, just having fun, like felt like no worries, and then I was having some symptoms and got, I can go into that a little bit more, but then got diagnosed with cancer and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
life life really
What
can
was it?
change in an
Yeah.
instant.
That's so true. That's so true. So what was it that you were noticing that,
Mhm.
brought you in to say, "Hey, something's not quite right here."
Yeah. So for about like a year, I was having some chest pain. I just felt like I pulled a muscle or something.
Mm,
I did work
yeah.
out quite a bit. I then had a cough also for about a
Mhm.
year. And then I got like two swollen lymph nodes in my left armpit. And that was a little concerning for me. I called my mom. My mom's a nurse, and so she was
Mhm.
just amazing through everything. But I called her, and she's like, "No, that can happen. Like if you're sick or whatever, if it doesn't go away in a couple weeks, then maybe go to the
Right.
doctor." So it had been a couple weeks, and I was on a flight home from London. The company I worked for previously was headquartered in London, so I would go there quite often. And on the flight home, my like chest was really hurting. I was like kind of nervous. I like had this weird kind of vein thing in my arm happening.
Mm,
I thought like I was having a heart attack or something.
mm.
It's a long flight from London to
Yes, a
Austin.
long flight to
So
panic like that.
exactly, it was really scary. So then when I got home, like landed in Austin, I basically went straight to urgent care
Yeah.
and they took an EKG and they were like, it does look a little off. We recommend going to the ER. So I went to the ER and then they took an x-ray and basically, honestly, immediately, it was actually kind of crazy. Immediately the doctor was like, we think you might have lymphoma. And I was like, I had to Google it. I didn't even know what that was. And it said
Wow.
cancer. I was like, you guys are insane. Like, no, I
No,
don't.
I'm 24. This
You're
can't be
wrong.
happening.
Yeah, this doesn't happen. And I felt healthy. Like other than those
Yeah.
symptoms, looking back, I obviously noticed them, but like during, it was just kind of like whatever. Like during college,
Yeah.
I always had a cough. I was always sick. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it just didn't feel, I still had energy. Like it's so interesting. You just,
Mhm.
when you hear cancer before you have an experience with it, you think that you're like really sick, you
Yeah.
know? And a lot of the times now I know it usually actually doesn't feel that way.
Right.
Um, so
So,
yeah,
needless to say, it was a state of shock, right? A little
oh my
disbelief.
God. Oh, for sure disbelief. Yeah, I didn't actually get, I mean, they kind of knew, but I didn't actually get officially diagnosed until like 3 weeks after that when I came home to LA because I just couldn't find good doctors there. They were kind of giving me mixed messages. So then I finally came home to LA, did like a full biopsy of the lymph node, and then that's when they officially told me that it was Hodgkin's.
Having a nurse for a mom
Yeah.
could be, I could absolutely see where it's a blessing, but it might also create a little bit more panic, because she might know too much about the situation. What was that like, having mom
Yeah.
nurse there? Yeah.
No, it was amazing. Like truly.
Yes.
If she did know more, she didn't let on. Like but
Yeah.
she's very strong. Like you never think she's worried or concerned
Right.
about anything in
She
life.
sounds like a rock.
Um,
Yeah.
she is for sure. And I'm so grateful for her because I know too, like now, in my career, now working with so many cancer patients and survivors, like it can be really hard if you don't have an advocate for
Yes.
yourself. And she was literally my advocate. Like I would just like sign off when I was meeting with my doctors and just like she's got it, like I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for her because it's so hard. It's hard to make decisions. It's hard to pay attention. So I do always recommend like having someone that can,
Yeah.
advocate for you too.
Well, and to be the calm in the storm sometimes, because as
Yeah.
you're facing the diagnosis, sometimes you don't know what questions to ask. You're overwhelmed, and just
Oh
having
my
that
gosh,
person
no
next to you.
idea. Totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I remember when the doctor told me I was gonna have to do chemo, and right when he said chemo, like I just shut off. I was like,
Is
oh
that
my,
when it hit
like
you? You think like that was
that's
the
when it hit
moment
me
that it
for
was
sure.
real?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. That was the hardest part because when they told me it was Hodgkin's, we didn't know too much about Hodgkin's. My mom was like, sometimes they like do chemo pills for certain cancers. So like, um, and so I kind of felt better in a
Hmm.
weird way because I was like, okay, now we know what it is, so we can do something about it.
Yes.
But I was praying I wasn't gonna have to do chemo because
Yeah.
that's just the scariest thing ever. Back then. Now I know my symptoms weren't as bad as I was expecting with chemo and things like that. So that was okay in the long run. But losing your hair, all of that, it was just like, yeah, I think that's when it hit. Like, holy, I'm sorry if I can I cuss? I don't know,
That's okay. We've got great
um,
editors.
okay, good. But yeah, that's when I was like, oh my God, like this is real.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you're processing all this, I mean, you mentioned, you had a typical 24-year-old life at the
Mhm.
time. Obviously, life changed because you're in the middle of treatment, but
Yeah.
how else did life change? Because
Yeah.
your 24-year-old world is going on without you in a way for that moment.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, and that's exactly how it kind of feels. It's like, oh, like friends and people are kind of living life and like moving on with things and you almost feel stuck. So I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, so I moved home for like six
Hmm.
months to do treatment. So I moved home to LA and then pretty much right after treatment, I went back to Austin because I was like, I really want to just continue life and get back to
Yeah.
everything. And I didn't expect for that transition to be so hard. And I
Hmm.
think that's also why I'm so passionate about working with people after active treatment because no one talks about that. The
Yeah.
transition from like patient to now survivorship is so hard. And, you're constantly thinking the cancer is back, or you're having these fears of recurrence, or you're like, okay, now I'm like bald and like hanging out with all my friends again. And it's weird. Like, do we talk about it? Do we not talk about it?
Yeah.
So the transition was really hard. Um, and I think for me now, a lot has changed, but I think, what really changes, I think for a lot of us is like, we face our own mortality. So we're like,
Yeah.
okay, now how do I really want to live my life? I think brought more intention into it of like, what do I really want to be doing with my career? I really want to like, I think help people in this similar, phase. Um, and so, yeah, it changed everything. And then it really changed for me how I approach my own health.
Mm.
So, um, before I really, like I said, I worked out a lot, but I did a lot of like HIIT classes. Now I don't ever really do those. Now I do more yoga and kind of slow, more strength focused exercise because that's what feels good in my body. And before I ate super unhealthy, I was binge drinking every weekend, like normal 24-year-old, I think, life. And then after I was like, I kind of got back into that, but I was like, this is like does not feel good. And this is not what I want to be doing anymore. And this is not how I want to be treating my body. And I kind of had this mindset of like, if what I was doing before clearly wasn't working, I need to
Yeah.
switch something because I really don't want this to happen again. So that's kind of how I got into the world of nutrition and really starting to understand like, okay, how do I want to be fueling my body? What even do I eat? What is healthy? Like, I just
Hmm.
never really knew. And I never really Like I never cooked, I never really
Yeah.
learned how to really eat for my health.
And now you had a reason to investigate all that
Hmm.
and make life changes. I want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the emotional side. You talked
Yeah.
about, once you got through your treatment, certainly the fear of recurrence, but
Hmm.
you had your mom, which I know she was a rock, but at
Hmm.
24, I would
Hmm.
assume you didn't have anyone in your life that age who had been through
Yeah.
anything like what you'd gone through, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that was hard. It could feel very isolating at times. I remember always the night before chemo. I chemo every other week. And
Hmm.
I remember always the night before just having like a breakdown and just letting myself like be sad. But I also was, which I would really recommend, I was in a young adult support group, a young
Mm.
adult cancer support group through the cancer support community, which is in most places. So
Yeah,
if you're
that's great.
listening, I would look that up.
Yeah.
But that was incredible. My mom, again, she found that like right when I
Hmm.
was diagnosed, and
Oh,
she
that's
forced me
awesome.
to go with her to the initial like meeting with the therapist that led the group. And I'm so thankful that she did because I
Yeah.
started going basically right when I started treatment.
How
So
did that
that helped so much.
how did that impact your fears? Because I mean, obviously you had fear about treatment, and then after, where'd you have fear about
Mhm.
recurrence? How did that group help with that?
I think it helped a lot with the fear of treatment
Mm.
because it was actually interesting. At the time that I joined, I think everyone in the group was done with active treatment. So was
Okay.
done with like chemo radiation. So
Hmm.
everyone was so sweet. They were super helpful with, talking about the hair loss, talking about certain side effects, making me actually feel better because
Yeah.
a lot of them didn't have a ton of, terrible side effects with treatment. Um, and so that was really helpful. I do remember one woman who had my same cancer, and she was, I think, like maybe 3, 4 months out of chemo, and she was having a lot of that fear of recurrence, and she was talking about it in the group. And I remember in my head being like, that's not going to be me. Like, I'm not going to live in fear. I am not going to be scared. When this is over, like, I'm living my life to the fullest. I'm not looking back. And that was not the case. I was also terrified after. So that was just interesting. I kind of got a preview into that, even though
Yeah.
I don't think I was accepting that that was my potentially going to be my reality. Um, so yeah, but it was, even though when I did get into that place of kind of that fear and anxiety after treatment, I knew that it was normal, quote unquote, to
Right.
kind of feel that way. So that did help in terms of just, again, making me not feel as isolated. I still did for sure, from time to time, but that support group was so helpful for me.
Coming back to Austin and kind of
Hmm.
rejoining your friend group, I can only
Hmm.
imagine how challenging that was because
Yeah.
they can't quite relate to what you're going through. I'm sure there are others listening to us now who may
Hmm.
be going through something like that. What
Yeah.
advice would you give to them about kind of that reemergence into, quote unquote, real life,
Yeah.
after treatment?
Yeah. It is really hard. Like I have to say, my advice would be to one, like be open and,
Mhm.
vulnerable. We don't have to talk about it all the time, and don't talk about
Right.
it if you're not comfortable with the people that you're around. But I do think that would have been more helpful maybe for me to just talk about. I was super emotional during that time, and I
Hmm.
felt like I couldn't really talk to anyone, but I know if I did, they would have been so supportive.
Yeah.
Our friends and family like want to support us and take care of us, but they may not bring things up because they don't
They don't
know
know
if you want to talk
how.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or know
Yeah.
how. It's a really hard, situation for anyone in it. So I would recommend being a little vulnerable if you feel comfortable. Getting a therapist. That
Yeah.
and getting a therapist, I recommend a therapist or a coach. I recommend in the cancer space
Yeah.
because it's really hard. I tried with a couple therapists that didn't have any experience with
Hmm.
cancer, and that was really hard. And then when I found my therapist, she actually worked at the cancer support community for a bit, and she
Yeah.
understood more, and she's amazing. So I would definitely recommend finding a therapist, someone you can talk to and just let it all out for an hour a
Hmm.
week. Just like cry it out, whatever you
Yeah.
need to do. And then find some sort of support, whether that's a support group. I know sometimes those can
Hmm.
be hard to find, or someone else that has, I found a lot of people on Instagram
Hmm.
that also had my same cancer. Find at CanCare, like,
Yeah, absolutely.
find someone that you can talk to that gets it so that you don't feel isolated. I think that's truly the number one thing that helped me. And I lead groups for cancer survivors for women in that phase. And I think it's just so helpful. Everyone is sharing and talking and supporting one another and understands just where you're coming from.
Well, you truly took your journey and completely pivoted your life. I mean, this has kind of
Mm-hmm.
become your calling now.
Yeah.
Tell us, was there a particular moment when you were like, okay, I'm meant to do this. This is kind of now my purpose. When did that
Mm-hmm.
happen? Or was it gradual or?
Yeah, there was a moment. So there was a specific moment when I was like, I can no longer do marketing. Like, this is stupid. I was
You crack me up.
I was so I was in sales for like digital advertising before. And so I was at a conference, like a Microsoft conference, and all day everyone's talking about business and running ads and money and all of this. And I got back to my hotel room and I started, like, I called my mom and I was just crying. I was like, this is so stupid. I can't do this
Right.
anymore. Like, I don't care. I don't care what people
Well,
are
after
running
you,
their
yeah, after
ads.
you go through all of this, you're like, it puts
Yeah,
life in perspective, right?
totally. It's just like literally none of this matters. Why am I spending all my time doing this? And I hated sales anyway. So that was the moment where I was like, I want to do something different.
Hmm.
And I also was with a coworker. It's so funny how like things just happen. But I was also with a
Yep.
coworker on that trip, and I loved her, and she was talking about how she's doing on the side. She was in school for a nutrition program,
Mm.
and she was helping her dad lose weight, and he lost like 15 pounds and he felt so much better. And for some reason, that was like, okay, I want to do something like that. Like, not only I want to feel better, I don't know how to eat healthy, and I
Right.
want to, I think, help other people. And so that was the catalyst to kind of figuring out how to actually do that. Um, so I talked to a friend who is a nutritionist, and she actually recommended, because I knew I couldn't really go back to school full time. She recommended the program that I did, which is through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition,
Mhm.
and it's a health coaching year-long program. And I did that, and that was like life changing for me. I
Yeah.
just learned so much. I changed my own lifestyle a ton. All of my physical side effects from treatment literally went away when I switched my diet. So I was just like, okay, I'm sold. Like, food is
Wow.
medicine, and I want to help as many people, figure that out and learn how they can do it for themselves as much as I can.
That is amazing. And so now you're coaching, really,
Mm-hmm.
right, on mindfulness and movement and nutrition. Tell us a little bit about
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing now.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a health coach. So I focus on working with cancer survivors after active treatment. And I help them really, again, in that kind of like transition phase through those pillars that you just mentioned: nutrition, movement, and mindfulness or stress management. Because I believe our health is really approaching it from a whole body approach, and holistic health and balance is so important. And after cancer, we're getting all of these mixed messages of like, never eat sugar, don't eat meat, plant based, like protein, like all of these mixed messages. And so it can be really overwhelming with what
Yeah.
to eat, what to avoid, what feels good in your body. So I help people essentially understand what their body needs during that time, what feels good, and how to prioritize those healthy foods and manage their stress and anxieties and all that.
Oh, that's amazing. And it can be overwhelming. And, we
Yeah,
hear so much that people tend to turn to Google a lot and they get
I know.
overwhelmed by all the
Mm-hmm.
different and sometimes conflicting information that's out there and opinions that's
Mm-hmm.
out there. And I understand obviously everyone's situation is different.
Yeah.
But if there were maybe two or three consistent things that you tend to
Mm-hmm.
tell your clients that
Mhm.
help them through whether it's their treatment journey or maybe post-treatment and
Mhm.
trying to, recover. What would
Mhm.
those be?
Yeah. Such a good question. So during treatment, it's a little hard because I know
Yeah,
appetite and things like that, like it's just like eat whatever you can.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that's
Get
also
food.
why I kind of focus on that like transitionary
Yeah,
phase, because it's a little bit easier for us to start building habits and doing those types of things. But three tips, my number one would be to add in anti-inflammatory foods.
hmm,
So this is, you can literally Google like, what are
yeah.
anti-inflammatory foods? And it'll give you a list. Add those in as much as you can. That's like avocado, salmon, broccoli, grapes, mushrooms, lots of different things. Add those in because they seriously help with a lot of the physical side effects that you tend to have after treatment.
Hmm.
Whether that's like joint pain, inflammation, weight gain, fatigue, those are all signs of actually inflammation. And we can actually help reduce that with food. So I really recommend that. I do recommend limiting processed foods and sugars.
Yeah.
You don't need to cut them out completely, but those are unfortunately inflammatory, and we're trying
Hmm.
to create a healthier environment inside our body because we just if you got chemo, for instance, you just got like poison basically pumped into you.
Hmm.
And it's good. We needed that for a certain amount of time, but now we want to help our body detoxify and flush it out and reduce inflammation. So we do want to kind of limit those processed foods. I always recommend thinking about like an 85-15 balance, where 85% of the time we're eating healthy, balanced meals, whole foods, clean eating, and 15% of the time we can indulge a little bit, have a little treat, because I don't think perfection is something to strive
Right.
for either. I think that's just unrealistic. So I
Hmm.
like the 85-15. So that would be number two. And then my number three would be protein. We really need protein to help really revitalize the body, bring our energy back, repair tissue. Like all of that is really, really important. And we also want to help build muscle and all of that good stuff, which yes, comes with working out, but we need to kind of support those workouts with the protein. So I recommend for that getting about like 80 to 100 grams of protein per day. That's roughly like 25 to 35 grams of protein per meal. Sometimes that sounds hard. If you don't eat meat, I know that can be a little bit harder. So trying to just like kind of plan ahead is really important, and understanding how many grams of protein really are in your protein sources is a great place to start.
Well, thank you for those tips.
Yeah. Yes.
I would imagine there has been some very rewarding
Hmm.
clients and experiences you've had in your coaching. Is there a particular story, without giving names,
Hmm.
um, where you saw a real powerful transformation in someone you were working with?
Yeah. Yes, so many. I'll talk about one woman in particular. I won't, yeah, name names, but she came to me, she was done with treatment, but she felt so kind of weak. I think she got recommended by someone to go plant-based. And I'm not saying to not go plant-based, but
Right.
just listen to your body. But she wasn't eating enough. She was not eating enough protein. Her cognition was very low. She had a lot of brain fog. It was impacting her work, things like that. And when we started working together, we did start to add in meat again. We started to add in protein, making sure she's eating enough. I meal plan with every single client as well. So they're set up for the whole week. And by the end of it, I have a testimonial from her too, and it's amazing. And by the end of it, had so much energy. She literally, I mean, I meet with people over Zoom, and she was a whole different person. Like her mind came back. She was so excited about work. She had so much more energy. She just like felt good in her body. Her blood work at the end, she had like another just blood work visit with her doctor. Blood work was like all normal, whereas before 3 months prior, it was not. Things were really
Wow.
low and she was deficient. And that's just another example of like how much food impacts our
Yeah.
bodies.
Yeah. Food is
And
medicine.
food really is
Hmm.
medicine, and it's information, for ourselves. And so that one, I just think about her all the time. She's amazing. And yeah, so that would be probably top of mind what one of those success stories.
Well, that's got to be so rewarding for you to
Hmm.
channel your passion in this way and to touch people's lives in such a way. I don't
Hmm.
know if you have many young adult clients,
Hmm.
but I'd love for you to kind of speak to them right now. You know,
Hmm.
any young adults listening, maybe they've just gotten the diagnosis or they're in treatment.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, what you didn't know then that you know now, or anything that
Mm.
your past self, if you had to go back and do it all again, you wish you would have known. But what would you
Yeah.
want to share with that young person who has been diagnosed?
Hmm. Yeah. I think one thing is like accepting that after this, your body and mind will be different. Your
Mm,
body will feel different. Your mind will work differently. Cancer is traumatic. So you might have some like PTSD a little bit. And at the same time, even though that's hard to accept, if we are able to like embrace it and shift our perspectives and really work on ourselves, our body and our mind, life can be so amazing and beautiful. And you can have more energy and feel stronger than you ever did before. So I just encourage like to use this almost, it sounds crazy, but like use it as a reset, like a
mm,
little reset button where it's like, okay, like life is hard and at the same time it can be really beautiful and now I have an opportunity to embrace all of that beauty and like really find my purpose in life
mm.
because it just shows us like life is freaking short and anything can happen in a second. Your life can be forever changed, so take advantage of the time that we have.
Yeah, I hear that so much from survivors of just how
Mm-hmm.
cancer helped them find their purpose in life. You know, it's so
Yeah.
powerful. I mean, look at the trajectory you were on and the pivot. I mean, would you have ever imagined at
Yeah.
23, the year before, that you would be
No.
doing what you're doing now and touching so many lives? It's awesome.
Never, like literally never. I never thought I would be doing anything health related. I never
Right.
thought I would, be sharing my story. I never thought I was going to have a story. I never really had a passion. Like, yeah, it changed everything for me and truly in the best way. And I know I can feel really hard during it, but after it really can just change everything in such a positive, beautiful way.
So we often ask our guests what the gift of cancer was for them. And I know
Mm.
sometimes that's like, a gift, but after
Hmm.
contemplation, usually, most people will say, okay, I found something.
Yeah.
So what would that
Yeah.
gift be for you?
Honestly, so many, but I would say, I think, like I mentioned, like my passion. I think I
Mm,
really didn't have a passion for anything
mm,
before cancer, and I think now my passion really is one to live life truly to the fullest and like my
mhm.
healthiest and feel good in my body, and to help others do the same. Like
Yeah,
it really just brings me so much joy and purpose, and so it did give me my passion for sure.
that's incredible. I know those words will touch so many lives and ears in a positive
Oh,
way.
thank you.
So I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So your story is so impactful, and I know will be such an inspiration to so many listening, but could be
Hmm.
even more of an inspiration if you were to become a CanCare volunteer. So, can I
Hmm.
put you on the spot? Would
Yeah.
you join
Yes,
the
of
CanCare
course.
family? We would love for you to
Yeah.
join it.
100%. Yes. I love what you're all doing. Like I said before, like one of my biggest tips for anyone going through it would be to find someone that
Yeah,
has gone through it before. And that's exactly what you're all doing. So 100%. Absolutely.
awesome. Well, I will consider you recruited, Maddie.
Yay!
Well, I'm so grateful for you sharing your story. It's truly incredible, and I know it will be such an inspiration for so many. So, thank you so much for
Oh,
sharing your story today with us.
thank you, Darcy. Thank you so much for having
Yes,
me. I really appreciate it.
absolutely. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of Hope in the Face of Cancer. Until next time, remember, there is always hope in the face of cancer. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hope in the Face of Cancer, a survivor by your side. If you or someone you know is facing cancer or is supporting a loved one through their journey, we invite you to share this podcast. Thank you for your support in our efforts in the cancer community. No one should face cancer alone.